Hello and welcome to Chapter 8. Chapter 8 is about becoming a master change agent, right? That's what this is all about, how to affect change into an organization. So Chapter 8 gives us some very good indications of what a change agent should be doing and just how to pull off this difficult task. So in this chapter, I get the slides to change here. So in this chapter, not having any luck. So in this chapter, we're going to look at how change agents are absolutely the key to this process. And not just the person as the change agent, but the vision that they're trying to implement and the situation in which they find themselves working. The change agent will describe the different traits and competencies of a change agent, how you should go about this. We'll find that experience certainly plays a big role in this. We'll talk about different types of change agents and how they affect changes on teams. So here we are, and as we walk through this process through this book, right, we're in chapter 8, so this is the last section of mobilization, and soon we'll start chapter 9 on accelerating this whole process. So being a change agent, right, I mentioned it's very important to think about the person who's a change agent, but also the vision they're trying to implement and the situation. It's a lot like leadership. In leadership, we always talk about the leader, the followers, and the situation in which they find themselves, because even the same leader with the same followers often calls for different leadership styles if the situation changes. Such things as you have lots of time or you have no time, it's an emergency. Those kind of things come into effect. So, should you think about becoming a change agent? Is it worth the risk? So the first big caveat is being a change agent can be professionally hazardous. So effecting change is difficult. People in the organization will push back on you. The organization as a whole might push back on you. We know it's difficult to get a change in place fully. It is a challenge. You will have setbacks, you will have failures, you will have people working against you. So it is certainly a challenge as a job. It's certainly a job where you can learn a lot, but as a task, it is difficult to pull off. And you need to go in there with your eyes wide open about that. For the second bullet, it's certainly energizing, it's exciting, everyone will know who you are, it's educational, you'll find out lots of things about the organization, lots of people, all that, and you might find yourself very well enriching, particularly if you focus on the way it helps you grow and the way your successes have helped the organization. And it's probably better if you don't shoot for 100%. If you have a lot of things to do, if you can implement most of it, right, you got to be willing to live with that and call that a win, right? So certainly in the third bullet, you're likely to improve your understanding of the organization. You're going to have develop new skills. You're going to really develop a network of contact and visibility throughout the organization. So it's kind of a chance to get your face and name out there, although it's certainly a struggle. And the fourth bullet leads right to that, right? You'll experience failures, right? And they're painful, but often they're not terminal. So you need to be resilient. People will be watching how you bounce back from those. So as an essential change agent, you need a lot of things that when we study a leadership class, we see lots of these same characteristics come up. You need to be committed to the cause, right? You need to have good communication, interpersonal skills, particularly when people want to verbally spar with you, push back against you, that kind of stuff. You got to be able to convince them, and you got to be able to do it in a calm, cool, managerial way, right? Certainly you have to have determination to push back against this inertia of the organization, so you need to keep your eyes on the prize and be flexible on how you're going to go about it. As you find different successes, they may pop up in unexpected places. You got to be willing to go with that. Right? It'll certainly help out your experience and networking skills, and you'll draw on those. And interesting that intelligence is the bottom of lists. So speaking of lists, we have this is our attributes of change leader, right? We see things like they have to be able to deliver an inspiring vision. Entrepreneurship, they have to be able to put together an organization within an organization that's going to drive this change, right? Standard and leadership attributes, integrity and honesty from others, right? Also learning from others and openness to new ideas and risk taking. All those are standard for leaders, and the same thing for change agents. Interesting when you go right down to the bottom of the list, using power is the very bottom of the list. I've seen managers, particularly less experienced managers, try to pound square pegs in the round holes just using the power of their position. And generally the peg is virtually unscathed, but the manager finds out they get a very sore hand trying to pound this peg into the wrong hole. So forcing things generally doesn't work. You need to make changes. You need to work with others. You need to do what it takes to make this happen other than resorting to brute force. And certainly the brute force approach can work, but often as soon as you're not paying attention, they go right back to their own old behaviors. So when you think about yourself as a change agent, right, there's a lot of formal studies think about these skills that pop up, and there's things you can do and things in this class you can learn to help you do better, but certainly experience is invaluable, right? It's kind of, again, a lot like leadership. We can teach it, and we can teach you the theories, and we can teach you things to do that will improve your leadership skills. But until you get out there and try it, you're really not going to know, right? So the second bullet is, you got to learn by doing at some point. And the third bullet says, since you're the one doing, you got to accept responsibility. You know it's a challenge. You know it's going to be difficult. You know people are going to push back against you. You know the odds are high against complete success. You have to accept that responsibility and do your best, and deal with the results you get. And then at the end, you should reflect on your experience and get better. And George Washington is one of my favorite leaders. George made some terrible mistakes in his younger days. Even when he was general of the army, he made some big mistakes fighting the British Army. And he made it an effort over and over again to reflect on that. Why did it go wrong? What happened? Why? What could I have done better? What could I have got my organization to do better? And he tried to curb his natural instincts to have an all-out attack on the British when he just didn't have the force to do that, and he had to learn this delaying tactic and all that, and essentially waited them out until the French jumped into the war, and then they had enough power where they could put a real effective force up against the British Army. But the point is, he made some big blunders, particularly early on, and he was able to overcome those because he changed his style. Even though it wasn't his natural style, he realized his natural style wasn't working, and he modified his behaviors on purpose in a very controlled fashion so that he would have a good, so he get better results for his organization, right? So yeah, if you ever want to read about George Washington and his leadership skills, and certainly as a change person, right, it's interesting reading about how he took what was essentially a very difficult situation, and he did not have the skills for it at the beginning to grow those skills sort of on the job training, and of course go on to become the father of our country. So we're going to talk about several change agents types here on the next slide. It's interesting to see there's a vision pull and an analysis push, right? So by pull, we mean you're going to get people excited about this change and have them want it. They're trying to pull it. They get, yeah, that sounds great. Show us, right? As opposed to analysis push, you're going to use data and facts to say, this is the thing we need to do, and kind of use logic to get them to agree. And that's more of a, all right, we understand that you have a lot of logic behind this. I guess we'll do it, right? Which is very different than an emotional pull towards making a vision happen. So we look at the emotional champion here, right? Has a clear and powerful vision of what an organization needs and uses. So that's the people that really want they get the people excited about this change. Or if it's in smaller increments, this intuitive adapter has a clear vision for the organization, uses that vision to reinforce a culture of learning and adaptation, right? So those are the two on the left going to the pull side. On the push side, the analysis push, we see the developmental strategist applies rational logic to understanding the competitive logic of the organization and how it no longer fits the organization's existing strategy and environment. So they're using rational analysis to show people that what we're doing isn't working or isn't working well enough, and we need to make a change. And it might be a big change. Or continuous improver, we're going to analyze microenvironments, so small little sections of the organization. We're going to analyze those and try to seek change, and we're going to use logic again to try to show people how we can change and get better. Right, so here again is that chart. So the pull is over here. We're all about the vision over here, and on this side we're all about the logic. And if you look at our numbers, if you look at our results, here's why we need to make these changes. So consultants comes up in the change world. A consultant we think of as an outside organization. We're going to pay them to come in here and either coach us through this thing or have them be the change agents, figure out what to do, and have them try to implement the change. Right, so there's a couple advantages to outside consultants. First of all, supposedly this is what they do for a living. So we would think they would be good at how to make changes, how organizations work. And in the second bullet, they bring a fresh perspective. We think of our organization as a certain way. We think, and it's been my experience talking to business people, most business organizations think they're special. Yeah, that applies to other people, but it doesn't apply to us. Just like every parent thinks their kids are above average, you end up with the same thing here, in that every organization thinks they're special. But when you have these outside consultants who one of the reasons you hire them is they've seen many organizations. You may know your organization inside and out, and hopefully you do, but these outside consultants have seen many organizations, so they will be better at this and able to uh, give you an objective view of what's going on, right? So that leads to this second last bullet. They provide expertise to help facilitate discussion, so they know what the steps are for this process. First, we need to do this, then we need to do this, then we need to do this, and then maybe some internal managers, yeah, but I really want to do this. And that's okay, but not right now. We're going to get to that later. And then extra assistance when talent is in short supply or time is of the essence. Everybody in your organization already has a job. Right? We assume everybody's busy all the time. And so this extra work that needs to be done because of this organizational change is a major burden on people. And I've often seen consultants come in with the sometimes their outside expertise, and having seen in multiple situations is a good thing, but often it's just because they're more people, right? They have time for this. Everybody else is focused on their job, right? There's the old joke about changing an organization is like changing an engine on a jet aircraft. Pause. Why it's in flight, right? So while it's in flight. So, and it's an old joke about organizational change, but you see the point. Everybody's already busy. The organization is busy doing what it needs to do to compete, and now you want to make some changes. So sometimes you just need extra people with time and energy to focus on it. That's where the consultants come in. They can help you do that. So if you're going to go the consultant route, right, you should just be sure you have a clear understanding of what you want and what are they going to do. Are they going to suggest change? Are they going to implement change? And what's the follow-up? What's going to be going over a period of time? How long are they going to be available to you to consult or come in and help or any of those things? You want to talk to more than one consultant. Our authors of this book suggest 5. Most people use 3 at a minimum as the rule in my experience. A request for proposal, RFP, that's where you're going to write down what you want. We want you to do this, right? We want to have so many people, so many man hours of labor, this, and this. And if you're having trouble with a request for proposal, I would go to consultants and say, hey, give us several from some of your clients, take the clients' names out of them, but we're kind of thinking we want help like this, and then have them give you samples, and then you can compile those into one document that fits your needs. Right? You don't have to create it from scratch, particularly if you don't know what you're doing. Right? And then when you make your decisions, right, you got to be very clear on what the expectations are of both parties. You can't expect them to do everything. And what are you going to do to help them? Where are they going to get their information from about your organization? Who's going to be their contact inside your organization and things like that? There's a lot to work out in terms of that relationship. All right, so when you put together a change team, we're going to look for members for our team. Some of the things we're going to look for on this change team, including if it's so these would be internal members and not to maybe working with the consultants. Right? You need people that are knowledgeable about the business, but hopefully you can find people that are enthusiastic about the change. This is not where you want to have your doubting Thomases. This is where you want to have your enthusiastic people. These people should possess excellent communication skills, but also be willing to listen and share. They got to help the team. Right? They got to find out that they're totally committed to this project. Right? They got to think this is absolutely vital, but they're going to remain open-minded along the way. Right? And they got to realize they got to work within the bounds of the organization. Right. So some of the things a change team needs. So this is a list you really got to pay attention to make sure the change team has all these factors to help them focus on what they're trying to do. They certainly need a clear direction, and they got to communicate. Later, they'll communicate that direction to everybody else. They got to understand what their task is. They got to understand what their rewards are. They got to have the available basic material. So they got to have whatever it takes to get the job done. Right. The authority, right, has to give this team support and make sure they can do what they're going to do. Team goals, so they have team goals, and they should have individual goals. Right? Development of team norms and promote strategic thinking. So how are we communicating with each other? How are we taking minutes? How are we meeting? How often do we meet? All those kind of things. Careful consideration of how these people will all fit together into a team. Right? And you got to really get people excited who are going to give it their all, because this is not going to be easy to do. Some other things, right? Don't right? Just enough, just enough is good enough. As you're trying to make changes, don't wait for perfection until you go on to the next thing. You got to find your wins where you can, and sometimes you're not. You think you're going to make changes in a certain area, and you're just going to have to go around it. It's an obstacle you don't have time and energy to overcome right now. Maybe you can come back and do it later when they see the flood of when whatever this obstacle is sees this flood of changes coming through your organization. Maybe they will loosen up later. So you got to think about, right? You got to think about how we're going to do things differently. We got to, again, like George Washington, reflect on the experiences, what's going on, how do we want to do, think fast and act fast. So things are going to happen on a quick basis here as people change their minds, as things happen, and you got to be willing to act like that. So you got to be able to deal with things quickly. You just sort of got to have that mindset going in, and you got to create a coalition who's going to make this change. You or anybody else will be unable to make this change on your own, right? So you've got to show the force of a team. This is teamwork. The team is pressing together. We're all going to work together on this thing. Right, so some of the things you need to remember. Right? Always be optimistic. Yeah, this is going to work. Oh yeah, we have a problem. We're going to solve it. What's the answer? I don't know. We just found out about the problem. Right? We'll figure it out. Right? We figured out the last 3 problems. We'll figure out this problem. That's what we mean by an optimistic bias. Even when people say, "Well, what's your solution?" Like, I don't have a solution right now. Right? Can you find a solution? Yeah, pretty sure. We're smart people. We can figure this out. Right? And then you got to be patient as people are trying to change, as people are jumping on board. Not everybody else is going to have your level of enthusiasm, so you got to understand that. But when things happen, when successes happen, when people jump in to help you and all that, you got to be ready to seize the moment. Right, so in summary of this chapter, right, we talked about change management. Right, it's sort of it is an essential part of those who want to manage and to lead. We got to worry about who the leader is and the situation and the vision. Right, we talked about the 4 kinds and whether it's a push or a pull kind of change. And this use of external consultants can help. But we talked about a lot about the characteristics of who's on the change team. Right, those are important things to review. That change, if you don't get the change team right, you're going to have a very, very difficult time trying to roll this rock uphill, as they say, as trying to make this change happen. So I wish you the best of luck on this challenging job, and if you do it right, it can really be a career maker. Even if you don't get all of the way there, making change for the better is a good thing. You have to focus on the good news, focus on the win. All right, so best of luck, and I'll see you on Chapter 9.